Hi, I'm Mark from eReplacementParts.com. In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the intake insulator gasket on an Echo trimmer. The intake insulator gasket forms a seal between the engine block and the carburetor isolator. You'll notice that it's oversized, and this is to keep heat from the engine from getting to the carburetor and causing the carburetor to vapor lock. Oftentimes, when you disassemble the engine, you'll damage the gaskets. Whenever a gasket is damaged, it should be replaced. Replacing the intake insulator gasket is easy to do, and we're going to show you how. Intake insulator gaskets, as well as many other parts, can be found on our website. Let's get started. I'll begin by removing the air filter cover and the air filter. Before we remove any of the fuel lines from either the carburetor or the fuel tank, you'll want to make sure that you've drained the gas from the fuel tank. Otherwise it will leak, as the fuel in the tank tends to be slightly pressurized. I've already drained the fuel, so we can go ahead and move on. Next, I'll remove the air filter bracket as well as the air filter base. They're secured with 2 screws. There's the air filter base and the air filter bracket. Now I'll remove the throttle cable and the fuel lines from the carburetor. Pull that away from the carburetor, as well as the throttle cable. And on the underside, I'll remove the fuel lines. Between the carburetor and the isolator block is the intake gasket, and that'll usually just fall away, or you may have to pull it or scrape it away from the isolator block or the carburetor. Now I'll go ahead and remove the isolator block. Now I'll remove the spark plug boot and the spark plug. Now I'll remove the motor housing. It's held in place with 2 screws. Now I can remove the insulator gasket. Now I'll install the insulator gasket. I'll place it up against the motor block, and now work the cover over the top of the engine. The gasket needs to go behind the cover. I also want to make sure I have the ignition wire inside of the cover. Once everything's aligned, I'll secure the cover with the screws. Now I'll reinstall the spark plug and the spark plug boot. Now install the carburetor insulator. These nuts go on the back side of the insulator, and those are for the screws that secure the carburetor. You'll notice there's an opening at the bottom of the insulator, and that needs to line up with this opening on the bottom of the intake port. I'll thread the screws through the insulator first, and that way I can line them up with the holes in the insulator gasket. Now we'll reinstall the fuel lines and the throttle cable to the carburetor. To install the fuel lines, first I need to figure out which one is the incoming line. To do that, I just open the gas tank, Look inside and find the line that has the fuel filter attached. In this case, it's the black one. The yellow one will be the return line. Now on the carburetor, I want to find the incoming side. To do that, I'll place my finger over each of the fuel line connections while priming. One of them won't let any air out, and the other will tend to suck against my finger, and that's the incoming line. So I'll attach the incoming line to the black or incoming fuel line, and the return line, in this case, to the yellow fuel line. Now I'll reinstall the throttle cable. First, I'll open up the throttle and thread the cable into the connection on the top of the carburetor. Next, I'll place the nut in its holder on the carburetor and tighten up the secondary nut with a wrench. Now I'll reinstall the air filter bracket, air filter base, carburetor, and the intake gasket. I'll thread the two screws that hold this whole assembly through the air filter base. Next, they thread through the carburetor, and then through the intake gasket. And again, I want to line up the holes on the gasket with the hole on the insulator block. And now install the air filter and the air filter cover. And that's all it takes to replace the intake insulator gasket on your Echo trimmer. If you found this video helpful, be sure to give us a thumbs up and leave a comment.